Welcome to the Build a Life After Loss podcast, where we help you to build a life of purpose and joy. Our aim is to encourage your hope in the future and strengthen your confidence. I'm your host, Julie Clough, life coach and certified grief recovery specialist. Hello, my friends. Welcome to episode 46, Finding Answers with Heidi Swapp. Today, I'm going to be interviewing Heidi Swapp. You're going to hear the interview that I did with her. She is a crafter extraordinaire. She has products in stores around the country and online at heidiswapp.com. But in July of 2015, Heidi and her family were devastated by the death of her son, Cory, to suicide. Because of Heidi's business, she found herself facing heartbreaking grief in the public eye. She has handled this unexpected tragedy with unimaginable grace. Heidi and her husband made the brave decision to be totally honest about what happened and how it has affected their life. As a result, she's been an example of resilience in challenging circumstances. In March 2018, Heidi and licensed therapist David Kozlowski launched a podcast for people to build their relationships. Light the Fight. The Light the Fight podcast helps parents learn how to build, maintain, and improve their family relationships with actionable tools to help navigate difficult situations. That's from their website. I admire Heidi's genuine heart and her ability to touch the masses with her honest reflection and her unwavering commitment to bring light to the world. I hope you will enjoy this tender interview. I am so excited to have Heidi Swapp with me today. She's going to tell us a little bit about her story, and I want to introduce her first. You know Heidi if you've been in Michael's or Joann's. Her products are everywhere. Her signature handwriting, and I've known about Heidi for a long time because of my own interest in the crafting world, and I've had a lot of fun with her products. In fact, one of my very first mixed media pieces has one of your I don't even know what you call it. It was like a screen thing.
Okay, yeah.
Dream Out Loud in it.
Okay, yeah.
That was the title of my piece.
Well, perfect.
So it's awesome. But Heidi, tell us a little bit about your family and a little bit about yourself, and then we'll go from there.
I am a busy mom of 5 kids. My oldest son is 21 years old, and my youngest son is 11. So I kind of have this 10-year, decade span of my children. And my husband and I will be celebrating our 25th wedding anniversary this year. So we're pretty proud of ourselves. Pretty huge accomplishment. And we live in Utah now. In fact, I live really close to you, Julie. And we have lived in a lot of places. We've lived in Canada. We've lived in Arizona. We spent some time overseas in Beijing, and then we've been back here in Utah, I would say about 12 years now, which, gosh, time has gone by kind of fast. And, we love it here. I have, my daughter who just graduated from high school, and, it's busy. And as like you mentioned, I do have a craft business, and it's really been, I've been doing my little crafting for about 18 years. And it's not something that I ever really intended to do. It was kind of that story of when your hobby becomes your business type thing. And so I feel really blessed. I've worked with amazing people, and I think that I have really learned how to maximize my strengths and find really great people who can help me in the areas that I don't do really well in. But, having a creative business, I always take on too much. I always wait till the last minute. I'm always in over my head. I'm not one of those regimented, organized people. I kind of take it as it comes. That's kind of how I roll.
Well, you've done it really well, because from the outside, it looks pretty amazing. It looks pretty amazing. And so, and we appreciate what you do, because you bring a lot of happiness to a lot of people because of amazing products and the memories that you've encouraged people to keep.
Absolutely. And I do feel just very, very passionate about telling your story, about documenting your life, about collecting memories. And it really plays a big part in what we're going to talk about here tonight, which is kind of an interesting element of my story for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And Heidi, I actually found out about your loss just because I was a fan of yours, and I knew people because I was interested in that in the crafting world and so forth. And so the announcement about your son's passing, it's been almost 4 years, is that right? 4 years.
Yep.
Next month.
Yep.
I learned about that through social media, through this business that you've created. And I can't imagine what that's been like for you. Tell us a little bit about Cory.
Well, when Cory passed away, he was 16 years old. He turned 16 in April, and he passed away in July. And he's my second oldest. He's my second oldest child. And my first two kids came really close together, and they were both boys. And he just was, I'm always really intrigued with that birth order thing. And I felt like my kids really fell into that. He was just kind of that easygoing, ready for anything, charming, caring, just loved people, was a people pleaser, it was very easy for him to make friends, very easy for him to connect with people. And he just kind of was easy. He ate anything that I gave him. He was happy with anything you would have. If he didn't have something to play with, he found something to play with. He's just a really easygoing, fun-loving, wonderful kid. He had a million friends. I think the thing that I learned after he passed away is literally everybody that knew him felt like they were his best friend, which I think is such a great legacy.
An amazing quality to have. Yeah.
So he was also very, very concerned about me, always very sensitive to what was going on, and always looking for a way to help me out or to lighten my load. So he's just a really sensitive kid.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And super funny. Yeah. But he didn't ever need attention on him. He just kind of like slid the funny things, and it was just not attention seeking, but very much you noticed him because he was just fun and lively. So he had a great presence about him.
Yeah. His death must have come as an unbelievable shock to you and your family.
It really, really, really did. And as I look back on it, the things that I've learned more about, we should probably just get it out there in the open. Cory passed away from suicide.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, I would definitely not consider myself any level of expert on depression or anxiety or mental health in general. And Cory was not, like, if I thought about like textbook depression, that would be like somebody laying in bed all the time and not motivated, not functioning. And then if I think about like anxiety, in my mind, that was somebody who couldn't go outside or couldn't talk to people in a crowd or couldn't stand up in front of any, like I had these stereotypes of what this looked like. And Cory didn't fit any of those stereotypes that I had in my mind. I really, really, and my personality is just like, when you deal with it, when it comes, you deal with it. And I don't do a lot of overthinking about what if this and what if that and planning for it. And so I think that when Cory was dealing with depression and he was unhappy, he seemed agitated. And so like one minute he would be mad and angry and isolating himself. And then the next minute he wanted a grilled cheese and he sit down and he's cracking jokes. And so very much just felt, honestly, all the administrators and all the people that I took him to see, doctors, everybody just said, he's going through puberty. He's an adolescent boy. He's a 14-year-old boy. So it really kind of started its uptick about 2 years before he passed away. And he was never like constantly sad or constantly anxious, but there were some other signs. His grades plummeted. His willingness to participate at church and just go along with what everybody was doing changed. And also, I will say his agitation. He, like, if you were tapping your pencil or if somebody's doing something annoying, it just agitated me. He wound up kind of with this real short fuse. Now, also teenage boy, right? Like these are things that I think everybody kind of was telling me should be expected. And as his mom, I was concerned because it wasn't like the Cory that I knew, but I kind of just thought, you know what, we're going to work through it. And we got him therapy and we talked about it. We took him to a couple different specialists. We would trying to get him more sleep and trying to eat better, different things. And so I will say this, I will say that in the situation, I did what I felt like I knew, which was very little compared to what I know now and how I feel about it now. I did the best that I could. And I did what I knew at the time. And there's some other elements, and I do like to share this. Cory had a traumatic brain injury, and that happened right around the time he turned 14. And when that happened, he had a really bad concussion. So we kept him out of sports and we did all the rest and we did what we thought we should do. And going forward, I didn't really know that traumatic brain injuries led to depression and anxiety or struggle with attention or processing. So, I do like to share that piece of the puzzle. Every suicide is complicated. There's not one thing, but I will tell you, I was not it was not in my mind. I was not thinking, oh, what if he takes his life? That was not even on my radar.
Right.
And so when that happened, it was devastating.
Yeah.
And I'm going to share this just because I think that this is a grief. I know that the topic here is grief, and I think that it's kind of interesting going into right after it happened. Right around that same time, there was a couple other young people in our area who passed away from some different circumstances, not suicide, but different circumstances. And I found myself feeling jealous that he hadn't died in an accident. because I was so mortified, and I hated that he made that decision. And I was so, like, it was so hard for me to talk to other moms who had lost, because it felt heavier. It felt harder. And so at that point, early on, it didn't bring me comfort to talk to other people that were dealing with loss. And as I kind of started crawling out of that place, I started having conversations with some of these moms, and I found out that having a child, like, no matter what the cause of the death was or the reason for the loss, you feel the same. You hate it, and you feel guilt, and you feel shame, and you wish you could have changed it or fixed it or altered that. What is that one piece in history that would have altered that outcome? And it became very important for me to understand and stop comparing. That's probably, I've talked about a lot, that grief and loss is not a competition.
Absolutely.
It is a hard story, and devastated our family.
Yeah. And you were in such a unique situation, because I know with my own loss, just getting back into the public was super, super hard. And for you, because you had this huge following, it was even, I mean, I just can't even imagine. I can't even imagine what that was like for you.
What I will say about that is that I think something really important happened in the very beginning that I'm really thankful for. And I was to be completely honest, I was so ashamed and embarrassed that my son had taken his life. Like, it was the ultimate. Like, not only had I lost him, but I was just horrified that this was the circumstance, and that my one job as a mom, to keep my kids safe, I hadn't been able to do. So, like, and in the first 24 hours, my husband was out of town when it happened, and so he was making his way back in town. And in that first 24 hours, no kidding, I played every scenario in my head of stories that I could tell that would be reasonably believing and would not be as mortifying to say out loud. It took me a long time to be able to even say out loud what Cory had done. And when my husband finally arrived, and we were trying to decide how to handle it and how to talk about it, and we made the decision that we were just going to be really honest about it. And I remember I have vivid memories of that very first moment when I had to share this story with these people who had followed me since Cory was born. I taught my first scrapbooking class when I was pregnant with Cory.
Wow.
And so I'd really documented this kid. People knew him and about him. And when I made that decision, I pressed publish 100% believing that people were going to come back and say, "You are a terrible mother.
Wow.
What is going on in your household? How could you let this happen?" Because that's what I was telling myself. And the opposite happened. And honestly, immediately people were reaching out with their stories of suicide. And it took me a long time to start reading messages and but the support from my community, because I was able to be open. And I also want to say that I had the luxury of being open. And it is a luxury because there's a lot of things that go wrong, a lot of trauma that happen to people that they cannot be open about. And the fact that Cory was gone, and I got to be the owner of that story by myself. Like, I didn't have a co-owner in Cory. Like, I don't know if that makes sense. Sharing that story and talking about that story opened me up for people to be able to support me. And I could feel the prayers, and I could feel the love pouring in. And I think it was a game changer for me. And then reading people's stories, like in the very beginning, tons of people would give me books. And I don't, like, I'm not a reader. I'm practically illiterate. Like, I don't read, like, I don't enjoy books. And I, no kidding, had this stack of like 15 books about dead kids. And I just thought, oh my gosh, nobody, give me a Calvin and Hobbes book. I don't know. I cannot read about one more dead kid. Like, it was so overwhelming to me. But when I was getting these little stories, super personal stories about people who had lost a child or lost a parent, or they themselves, actually, the most powerful, comforting, enlightening stories were the people who told me about their experience in a suicidal place. Because I was left with so many questions. It was so helpful for me. And these stories have a very common thread in a suicidal person that I just didn't even know. So I will say that for me, opening up and being honest was the greatest gift.
Yeah. There's a super important lesson in that. And you've taught it beautifully. And that is, when we're open for support. And when we can own our story, there's healing in owning our story.
There is. And that doesn't mean you have to like your story. And this is something that I've thought about a lot. And I really feel like a lot of, whether it's grieving, whether it's mental health, whether it's relationship, the health and the quality of your relationship, so important to own your story for just that reason. Number one, someone can be there for you. But I kept on thinking to myself, I hate this story. And there was no way for me to rebrand it or create a different narrative for it. And I remember when somebody else said to me, you don't have to like this, but you have to do this. Meaning that I couldn't change this story. And so I think that really helped me be an owner to this story. Because, there's a lot of us who have things going on in our lives, or things happen to us that we don't love, we don't like it. But hiding from it or pretending like it's not there doesn't help.
Yeah. So what other things do you think helped you in your own grief?
Well, I will tell you that somebody, and now I can't even remember, I think that it was pretty early on, and somebody explained to me, and I might have even read it on the internet. For whatever reason, I don't remember what the source was. I should probably ask my husband, but I learned through some source that the best, most important way to overcome grief or to deal with grief is to do the things you enjoy.
Mm.
And I honestly could not do one thing that I enjoyed. I couldn't think of anything that I enjoyed. That was the absolute last thing that I could do. I was so unhappy. And all the things that I enjoyed, like, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. My husband and I, so I'm in this situation where I'm the mom and I've got these family members and everybody's having a grief cycle that's a little bit different. And I like to explain it like circles. So like my youngest kind of had like a golf ball sized grief. And so it would kind of come around pretty quick, but it didn't last very long. And it wasn't super intense, right? But there were other kids that had these really large grief cycles and they were really dramatic. And when they would swing, it would just like roll over, take us all out, you know? And I really, in the beginning, I really felt like I had to keep my emotions in check because everybody's emotions were so, like, we were such a mess. So my husband is really the fun guy in our family. He's always been the fun one, and I've always been the not fun one. And he was really, so for me, going to work was the thing that distracted me, or the thing that I turned to. I just went back to work. I kept trying to work. But my husband needed fun. That was the thing that he enjoyed, was fun. I enjoyed work. He enjoyed fun. And so he made this decision to buy a motorcycle. And he wanted to connect with my sons in a different way that they'd never really connected with Cory. But Cory always wished we had motorcycles. And so it was kind of like this redemption, you know? And so he went and bought a motorcycle and then bought the motorcycles for my sons, and they started riding motorcycles together. And I will say, you know, it's been 4 years, and my husband's kind of evolved in the types of motorcycles, and now he's got a big trailer, and now my garage looks like a motorcycle shop. But Eric, my husband, found this posse of guys who love to ride motorcycles. And he found that by going motorcycling with the guys and being in the car on the way to where he went and then on the way back, he was finding connection in those spaces and having a great time and finding an outlet. And no joke, motorcycling has been a healing path for my husband. And I am so grateful because I could not have done that for him. He had to find it himself, and he had to go after it and be interested in it. And he lost himself in it, you know, but, I really love that.
Yeah. And you supported him in doing it. And
I loved it.
Awesome. Yeah.
I loved that there was something that I wasn't having to do too. Like I felt this responsibility to help everybody. And I was so thankful that he found some joy and connection in that.
Where did you find your connection?
You know, that's a really tough question because it wasn't easy. It was easy for me. I didn't want to go do something. I didn't want to be with friends. I didn't want to find a hobby. I didn't, you know, and I already felt super overwhelmed with work. And I started, my health started to struggle. Meaning I started to, well, I never have taken very good care of my health, but my health wasn't like, my energy, my eating was bad, my sleeping was bad. I just knew. And I didn't care that much.
Yeah.
I really delved into my questions about, I wanted to know what I did wrong. And when I say that, when I make that statement, everybody comes at me and says, you did nothing wrong. You did the best you could. You loved him. You were a great mom. And I appreciate that. And people can say that all day, but I feel like I failed. I still believe that I could have done better, but there's no way that I could have done better because I just didn't know. There's certain things you have to learn the hard way, I guess, but so I delved into trying to understand and trying to work through all of my questions and trying to understand depression, anxiety, suicide, relationships. And so I started to work really closely with a family therapist that was working with Cory. And he wasn't my counselor. So he likes to call it coaching. I don't know what the difference is, but we didn't really it wasn't a lot of in-room sessions. It was more like we would kind of meet up for lunch and we would he was teaching me. I wasn't going and giving him, he just kept on teaching me things, and I would have so many questions, and I'd come to him with a question, and then he would teach me. And so many light bulbs were going off for me. And I just couldn't believe that I didn't know these things. In a lot of these relationship conversations or parenting conversations or connection conversations, I just was learning things that I really was bummed that I didn't know, that I thought made so much sense. I can't believe I didn't know this before.
Mm-hmm.
And so I will tell you that I spent 2 years just peppering this guy with questions. I spent every day I would have messages in my inbox of people, moms struggling with kids and asking me for advice. And I would be writing back saying, hello, I just lost my kid. You don't want advice from me.
That must have been so overwhelming for you. I can't imagine.
I couldn't believe that anybody would think that I would be able to help because I was such a failure.
Well, and I don't see it that way, but just knowing how difficult grief is all by itself, and then to be put in that position where people are coming to you for answers, that just sounds just overwhelming.
But the things they were asking me, or the things that they were presenting to me, was helping me build my questions and ask really good questions.
What your questions were, yeah.
And after 2 years, I felt like I had such important information, and I wanted to shout it from the rooftops. I wanted every single parent to understand what I didn't know. I have this, what I wish I would have known, and sit down and let me blast you for 100 hours, right? So my healing, and I'm not going to tell you that I'm healed and that the grief is gone, but my healing and true joy comes in me sharing what I have learned. And hopefully the message that I can share on my podcast, in speaking engagements, in my Instagram, wherever, I just hope that I can share something that has some value, and that helps.
Yeah. And I think this is the perfect time to talk about your podcast, Light the Fight, right? And you do that with a co-host, which is the therapist that you're talking about. Remind me his name again.
So his name is David Kozlowski. Mm-hmm. And David is a marriage and family therapist. And when I found David and took Cory, I think it was our third therapist that we tried. And Cory immediately connected with him, loved him. Just like all teenagers love him. Mm-hmm. He just has this magnetism and this cool factor, and he can relate with every and anything. He's amazing. And I really dropped him off. I really would drop off Cory and just think, okay, fix him. And then I'll pick him up. I just really wanted someone to fix him because I didn't know what to do. Mm-hmm. I didn't know how to help him. And what I learned and what my podcast is about is that it's not about fixing someone else. It's about fixing ourselves and changing ourselves. Changing the way that we relate with people, the way we connect, the way we offer ourselves up in our relationships. And that's really what Light the Fight is about. The very first time that I met with David after Cory died at a pizza place with our family, he taught me the difference between shame and guilt. And you know what? I was a 44-year-old human that did not know the difference between shame and guilt. And it was, like I said, such a light bulb moment that I was like, I wish that I could teach that to Cory right now. I wish that he would understand that. And he taught me very clearly that day. And this was in me processing, like, how am I going to tell this story? And people are asking me questions, and how do I talk about this? And he taught me how shame breeds in the dark, and that when we shine a light on it, it kills its power. And that's where the name was born that day, Light the Fight. I believe it is a fight. And the more light that we can put on it and expose it and help to understand and educate it, then the less power it will have. And so it took, we've been doing the podcast for just a little over a year. So it took me a solid 2.5 years to get to a place where I felt like I could talk. And I still felt so inadequate to teach because I still felt like I had lost my kid. But I knew that I was learning things that I think would have saved him. And obviously I don't know that, but.
And you're a powerful messenger. You're a powerful messenger. And I think you feel that mission that you're on to help others to kind of figure it out. And yeah, you have a slogan. I know I've seen it on hats and different things. You have at events and what is it? Don't freak out.
Don't freak out.
Yeah.
Don't freak out. And I tell people the number one thing, if you do nothing else, if you don't exercise any other tool, if you don't learn any other thing, don't freak out. And I am the all-time world's best freak outer.
I think we can all appreciate that as moms. We can all appreciate those moments of freak out. Yeah. So that's really good. One of the things that I have admired about what you do is that the way you celebrate Cory and the way that you, just birthdays and different family things that happen, and you really celebrate Cory, and I really appreciate that. I think that's an area where I could use some work. So I would love for you to kind of share with us some ways that you have celebrated Cory.
it's such an important thing. And for me, I believe, so my belief system is that I'm still parenting Cory.
Mm-hmm.
Wherever he is and whatever he's doing, I believe he's aware of me. And I believe he's still learning from me and watching me. And so the way I conduct myself, I do with the thought that he's watching. And Cory loved wolves. Wolves were his thing, and he would wear like these wolf t-shirts. And so immediately, like the wolf and also his skate high Vans, he's a skater, those became symbols of Cory. And even at Cory's viewing, we all wore these animal shirts that Cory loved. And we all went out, our whole family bought skate high Vans that day. And I mean, I can tell you that if Cory was alive, he would like not be okay with me wearing skate high Vans. He'd be like, Mom, get those off your body right now. You're old. But for me, wearing skate high Vans and animal shirts and repping him in that way was, I guess, my way of keeping him close and keeping him alive, or being connected, staying connected with him. I wanted him to see me honor him because this was a tough situation, a tough circumstance, that I know that wherever he is, I'm sure he knows that hurt me, that his decision. And so I think that he and I are still working through that, mm-hmm. Him and all of us. Right. But, I want him to know that we love him and honor him, and no matter what. And so we have tried to do, Cory loved fun. And so we try to do something fun when it's his birthday, or even his death day. And one of the things that I really loved that brought me a lot of comfort was that we wrote. I invited everybody to come over and write on the sidewalk, so that like Cory could see the messages from heaven, basically. And our whole house, our whole front yard, our walks were all covered with messages for Cory. And I had just left like chalk outside, and people saw it and came by, and it meant the world to me. It meant the world to me. We kind of go and buy animal shirts, and we eat Cory food and talk about Cory. And I want to make sure that it's never a taboo subject. Any portion of it, I don't want it to feel taboo. And so I think that talking about it, creating one of the things that I really love to do, I hated that when he passed away and we went to the mortuary, they thought that I was going to pick a headstone. Mm. I was so offended that they thought that I could just pick it. And I was really struggling with that. And it took me 3 years, just over 3 years, to make a decision. And so it was hard for my kids because we would go to the cemetery, but there was nothing there. And they were frustrated with me, and I was frustrated with me. But when I finally picked it, and I finally found someplace that could do what I wanted. And I really love it. And I really feel like it honors him. And we kind of make signs and things. And I don't like to go to the cemetery very much. I don't like, it's not a regular visit for me, but when we go, it makes me feel good to honor that place.
Yeah. Well, and I appreciate that, because I think that's the experience for a lot of people, is that it does take some time to make a decision about something that's so permanent, that represents somebody that's so important to you.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just wondering, is there any other parting advice that you would give to a mom that's lost a child, or anyone else that's going through grief right now?
You know, I will say that the way that I described grief, the way that it made sense to me, is that it felt like I was holding a boulder. And it made everything harder, everything that I had to do harder, because it was heavy and I was tired, but I couldn't put it down. But it made like I couldn't craft because I was holding the boulder, and I couldn't make dinner for my family because I was holding the boulder, and I couldn't take care of myself because I was holding the boulder. And I felt like the grief made the things that I suck at, made me suck at it even more. Like, it's already hard for me to cook for my family, but sitting at the table with an empty spot was the absolute worst. You know, like I couldn't do it. Getting places on time, I could not do it. And so what I think is interesting is that grief boulder hasn't gone away, but I have learned how to set it down sometimes. And some days I got to just pick it up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in fact, even just yesterday, and mind you, it's been 4 years. And the way that I finally think that I can describe it is that it's a time warp. And it's been 4 years, but it also feels like right now. Like right now, Cory's gone. It doesn't feel like 4 years ago. It just feels like right now. And even just yesterday, I woke up and I just felt horrible. And I thought, I don't know what it is, but yesterday I needed to pick up the rock. And I needed to let myself feel all those feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a hard time making dinner, and I had a hard time getting myself going. And I carried that rock with me all day yesterday. And today I felt a little bit different. I didn't carry the rock today.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that I don't know if maybe it will get smaller, or I won't need to carry it. But I think that if you feel like you need to carry it, carry it.
Mm.
And if you can give yourself a break to set it down, know that doesn't mean you have to like kick it to the curb or roll it down the hill or throw it off your cliff. You can keep it in a safe place, because it does represent a sad, a loss, a love. And I am thankful that I'm functioning a little bit better. This is interesting, and I'm probably crazy, and that's okay. But I would think to myself, like, okay, I don't have a Cory here to give him a gift for Christmas or for his birthday. And, you're a mom, and so you want to make that day special, and you want to give them a gift. And I had made the decision that I wanted to take care of myself.
Mm-hmm.
Because in some weird cosmic way, I knew he wanted me to take care of myself. I knew that he didn't want to be the reason that I was letting myself fall apart. And so as the holidays have come, and I kind of find myself like pondering what I can do for Cory, what I can give to him. I try to find ways to honor him by taking care of myself. And I know that probably sounds weird.
Not at all.
I don't ever want him to be sitting wherever he sits or looks and think it's my fault that my mom can't get up or do the things that she is here to do. I want him to know I'm okay. So that's one way that I connect with him as well.
You know, that's just so beautiful. I mean, it's something we talk about a lot, is the need to be patient with ourselves. And I loved your description of the grief as a boulder. I mean, that's just so perfect. And so often people pick up that boulder and they learn that they have to create some space. They have to create some space for that grief and for that boulder, like you said. And honoring Cory by taking care of yourself is beautiful. It's beautiful because, you know, the person that we lost, you know, you lost Cory, which was horrific, but Cory is not just that last day of his life. He is the whole culmination of all the years that he spent here and all the years that you're spending with him in this different way. So it's a beautiful thing to honor him that way.
I'm sure he's like, Mom, you could be doing better. Mom, stop drinking so much Diet Coke. He'd probably say that. But, I think that it's helped me to not remove him from my little squad. I still feel responsible for him, and I still feel like I need to be an example for him, as I do for my other children. And I feel like it's really important that also, you know, Cory's one of my 5 kids, that none of my kids feel like Cory's more important because he's gone, or
so important
that maybe I loved him more, or that he gets more of my attention, because grief is a demanding emotion. Mm-hmm. And you know, so that's another complication for moms. But
yeah. And we do have to give ourselves a little patience in that category as well, don't we? I just cannot thank you enough because I know you do this quite frequently. You share your story in hopes of providing hope for other people, of providing education to other people. And I just can't thank you enough because I know it's not easy. I know it's not, and you do it in such a beautiful way. You're so real and so vulnerable, and it's just beautiful to talk to you.
Well, I appreciate you. I will admit that all day I've thought, oh gosh, I got to talk about my grief. And I do hold my grief very close, and I try to honor my grieving, but I also don't want it to be in charge.
Yeah.
Some days it is. But I appreciate you, and I appreciate your efforts. And I know that there's, you know, in the very beginning, nobody said to me, I mean, everybody would say, there's no right way to do this. There's no right way. And you know what? I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful that nobody expected me to be or act or do this. I love that there was no rules. I love that because I'm not a rule follower anyway. And so I loved being able to use my creativity to navigate through my feelings. And so I think that anybody who's listening, I just want you to know that you can do it your way. There's not a rule. So don't read the 15 books and try to make it, like,
yeah.
I still haven't read any of the books. I don't know if I ever will.
And the other awesome thing is that not only did you honor your own grief and navigate it the way that felt right for you, but you also honored the rest of your family to do the same, which is huge because, I think so often we look at our family members and we say, well, they should be acting this way, or they should be acting this way, or why isn't he crying, or why is he crying all the time?
That is so hard. Yes, yeah. That's hard.
Yeah. So that it's beautiful that you have, not only honored your own, but honored other people's as well, your family as well. So tell everyone how they can reach you, how they can find you on. I know you're on everything. I follow your everything.
So the best way, and probably the most present on Instagram, and I'm just at Heidi Swapp on Instagram. You can also find me on Facebook and on Twitter. Same thing, Heidi Swapp. HeidiSwapp.com is where my products are. And also Light the Fight. I would love to encourage anybody that, we all just need to be better at relationships. And it really is a relationship podcast. So it's called Light the Fight. And that's on Instagram, it's on Facebook, it's on lightthefight.com. But it's a podcast, and we don't overproduce it. It's pretty raw. Yeah. But I think that's part of its charm. So you can find me there too.
Well, thank you so much. You're doing amazing work, and I just know it's not easy. I know it's not easy. So I just want to send my heart to you across these airwaves here, and just send my love and my appreciation for you.
Well, thank you very much, and I hope that you will keep doing this. Keep helping people tell their stories, helping people process, helping people navigate it, because it's needed.
Yeah, thank you. Isn't Heidi such a beautiful person? She invites us in with her vulnerability and her tender heart. I just love her and appreciate all she's doing to help others strengthen their family relationships. Again, you can find Heidi at HeidiSwapp.com and at lightthefight.com. Also on Instagram and Facebook by the same names. All this will be in the show notes if you want the links. If you listened and enjoyed this episode, consider letting Heidi know on Instagram at Heidi Swapp. All right, at Build a Life After Loss, we have 2 upcoming events I want to let you know about. First, if you're in the Salt Lake City area, a new grief recovery group is starting September 10th in Sandy. I only do these twice a year, and the group is an action program designed to help you move beyond death, divorce, and any other loss you might have experienced, such as loss of health or career or faith. Again, this group is forming on September 10th in Sandy, Utah. And for more information, send me an email at julie@buildalifeafterloss.com. The second upcoming event is our new online Build a Life After Loss support group, which will launch in October. So get ready for that. We'll be diving in deeper with the things we discuss on the podcast, so you can start applying what you're learning here, and we'll be adding time to answer your questions there as well. So I'm super excited about that. Again, have a wonderful week. Remember, I believe in you. I love you. Bye.